the main problem with this is that sharks have very, very slow reproductive rates. They simply cannot reproduce fast enough to replenish their numbers if they are fished in this way. Some sharks take up to 30 to 35 years to reach sexual maturity, and even then they only produce 1 or 2 pups a year. There simply aren't enough sharks in the ocean to repopulate. And the problem now is, as we're seeing shark fishing increasing like this, the sharks are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And now the majority of sharks that are caught are juveniles. This means that they already haven't had a chance to breed. So we're effectively stopping them before they even get a chance to replenish them. This is a hammerhead shark. It's a shark that most people probably recognise. But what a lot of people don't realise is that this shark is now reduced in size in the last 30 years alone by 99%. There is 1% left of the great hammerhead sharks in 30 years. And why is this important? As I was saying previously, sharks are top apex predators. They sit right at the top of the food chain, and they play an incredibly important role. They control everything underneath them in the food chain. They control the amount of medium-sized fish. And if they weren't there to do that, the medium-sized fish would, for a while, get larger in number. And of course, that would mean difficulties for the smaller fish, because they would all be eaten. And eventually you would find that there would pretty much be nothing left for those slightly larger fish to eat. So effectively, you're taking out every single level of the trophic food chain just by removing the sharks. And in 10 to 20 years, all species of sharks will be extinct if we do not stop this fishing practice from occurring the way that it is today. That's in our lifetime. We could potentially empty the ocean of all life just by removing sharks. And why are we doing it? For a bowl of soup. For a bowl of soup that has no taste, for a bowl of soup that has no nutritional value, and for a bowl of soup that is also poisonous. As apex predators, sharks accumulate every single toxin and poison in the food chain underneath them. So all of the fish beneath them in the food chain, they eat smaller fish, they eat fish that have been poisoned by plastic, by pollution. Sharks accumulate all of that in their body by magnitudes of 10 each time. So by the time you get to the top of the food chain, you're actually looking at an animal that's incredibly toxic. Not only do they have things like methylmercury in the blood system, which is a very, very poisonous heavy metal, but they also have incredibly high levels of cadmium, which is incredibly toxic. Now, I don't think it's worth it, frankly, not for a bowl of soup. To take something so beautiful and so important to life on Earth and to reduce it to a bowl of soup is ludicrous. Now, this is a whale shark, and a lot of people wouldn't think that these get fin, but actually they do. And each of their fins can sell for up to £50,000 each. So you can see that whilst there is a market for the fin, there will always be shark finning. The best thing to do is to remove shark fin soup, and that way you remove the finning. Now, a lot of people have said to me, this is a cultural practice, it's not something that you should be questioning. But for me, a cultural practice that in 10 or 20 years will no longer be a cultural practice is not sustainable, and it's something that we have to look at now. Also, it's an accepted cultural practice, it's not integral. It's something that is not integral to the culture. But also, shark fin soup is something that's served around the globe due to the kind of nature of the cultural world that we live in. Everyone wants a piece of shark fin soup to prove their wealth. And whilst we live in a world like that, unfortunately, this will still occur. So what can we do to stop it from happening? How can we save our oceans? Well, myself, I started a group called Fin Free Cambridge about 6 months ago. This is us doing protest in Cambridge on a very famous bridge here called the Garrett Hostel Bridge. And here we have one of our local politicians with us, who decided to support us in our quest to ban shark fin soup from Cambridge. We also collected a petition. Now, this is something that was particularly effective. We hand-collected 5,000 signatures in 2 months. We then presented this to the local city council, together with a motion from the local council that we were discussing, to put forward banning shark fin soup. We also staged a lot of protests. I work for a company called Lush, and they're very well known for being very anti-animal cruelty. And kindly, they let me pose in the window for the whole day full body painted as a shark. That caused quite a stir. And this has actually gone around the globe, this image. In the last week since this occurred, we've had people from Melbourne, Australia, people from South America, people from South Africa, all sorts of people taking an interest in what we're doing just in Cambridge. And Cambridge is now, as of last Thursday, the first city in the UK to officially condemn the sale of shark fin within its city limits. Hopefully it won't be the last. But what can you do? Well, you can become a fin fighter. You can stand up for sharks around the world and say that this is wrong. You can protect the future of the oceans by standing up and saying that you don't accept shark fin soup. You can join us on Facebook, join the Fin Free Cambridge movement. You can hold a concert or a themed party just to raise awareness. There's a really great film out there called Shark Water by a chap called Ross Stewart. It's very, very educational. It talks about shark finning a lot. I'd recommend it to everyone. Tell at least 2 friends. They'll tell 2 friends. They'll tell 2 friends. Word of mouth is very important. Support groups like Fin Free Cambridge, Fin Fighters, and Sea Shepherd. Never buy shark fin soup or shark products. And social media. Every single one of you here now has the capacity at your fingertips to do something with the flick of a finger that you wouldn't believe. I mean, we have more technology in this room than they had when they put man on the moon. We have the ability to really spread the word, to really make a difference. Write to local politicians and ask laws to be regulated properly and with stronger penalties issued for rule breakers. Write to companies and restaurants that sell shark fin soup and ask them to stop selling it. You can do a protest, dress up, do something silly, do something fun. But most importantly, be aware. I think it's very important that we're aware that this is going on now and that we have the capacity to stop it. We have the capacity to save our oceans for our futures. And if we take sharks out of our oceans, there will be no ocean. And I think it's very important to remember also that a pleasure for one person that diminishes life for others on this planet isn't a pleasure at all, it's a selfish act. And if we're left with dead seas, we certainly can't live on this earth. We have the power to do something incredible in our time. That's why you're all here. I think it's really important that we all stand up to make a future for ourselves, for sharks, and for our planet.